Here's a sentence that sounds like science fiction, but is just Tuesday. Inside an AI data center. Tens of thousands of chips all talking to each other. Not over copper wires, but over beams of light. And right now, there's a genuine war going on over how that light gets made and moved. Billions of dollars. Two giant camps. Completely different philosophies. I'm Theo.
And I'm Maya. Welcome to the Working Thesis. And here's the twist that makes this our favorite kind of story. It turns out that no matter which camp wins that war, the same tiny, unglamorous component gets paid either way. So today we're going to learn how AI optics actually works and find the real bottleneck hiding underneath the headlines.
First, a quick and honest word. Everything you're about to hear is really just the two of us thinking out loud. Personal market commentary, made for learning and for fun. It isn't investment advice, and it isn't a recommendation.
And when we talk about a specific company, it's only ever to make a bigger idea click, never a nudge to buy or to sell. So take it as a starting point for your own curiosity. Do your own research and make the call that's right for you. Before we dive in, the honest part. This is a learning episode made for curiosity and for fun. It is not investment advice, and it's definitely not us telling you to buy or sell anything. We're going to talk about a handful of real companies, but only ever as examples, to show how four businesses wearing the same AI optics label can be wildly different underneath.
Exactly. Think of it as a guided tour of an industry, not a stock tip. We care about how these businesses work and where the value actually sits, because that's the part that's genuinely fun to understand, and it outlasts any single day's price.
So, start me at zero. Why does AI need optics at all? Why beams of light?
Because of a brute force physics problem. To train a giant AI model, you've got to wire tens of thousands of GPUs together, so they behave like one enormous computer. That means moving staggering amounts of data between chips, and copper wire, which we've used forever, just runs out of road. Past a few feet at these speeds, an electrical signal degrades into mush. Light doesn't. Light can carry far more information much further for far less power.
So the optics are basically the nervous system of the whole AI cluster, the thing that lets all those chips think together.
That's the perfect way to picture it. And as the clusters get bigger, that nervous system becomes a bigger and bigger share of the cost, the power budget, and frankly, the bottleneck, which is exactly why there's a war over how to build it.
Okay, so what's the war about? You mentioned two camps.
It's about a shift in where you put the optics. Today, most data centers use what are called pluggable transceivers. Little modules you snap into the front panel of a switch, like plugging in a cable. They work, but the electrical signal has to travel a long way, 14 to 16 inches, from the switch chip out to that front panel module. And every inch of that journey burns power.
And the new idea fixes the distance?
The new idea is co-packaged optics, CPO. Instead of the optics living out on the front panel, you move them inside the switch package, right next to the main chip. Suddenly, the electrical signal travels less than half an inch instead of 16. The payoff is dramatic, roughly 5 times lower optical power for the same bandwidth. When you're running a data center that sips as much electricity as a small city, a 5x power saving on the network is enormous.
Give me a sense of the scale here. Is this a niche thing or a big deal?
It's a very big deal and growing absurdly fast. Just to put one number on it, NVIDIA's networking business, not its GPUs, just the networking, did about $14.8 billion in a single quarter recently, up almost 200% year over year. That's roughly a $60 billion a year business just in networking. And on the other side, Broadcom is already shipping a switch with 102 terabit capacity. So this isn't a science project. It's one of the fastest growing layers in all of tech.
So who are the two camps fighting over it?
Camp 1 is NVIDIA, playing what you'd call the full stack game. They want to sell you the whole integrated system. Their switches, branded Quantum-X and Spectrum-X, built with silicon photonics, all designed to work seamlessly together. It's the Apple approach. Beautiful, tightly integrated, and it keeps you inside their ecosystem.
And Camp 2 is the opposite philosophy?
Camp 2 is Broadcom, championing open Ethernet. Their pitch to the big cloud companies is basically, don't get locked into one vendor's full stack. Use our open building blocks and keep your freedom. And the cloud giants like that pitch because they're allergic to depending on any single supplier. One of them tested an early Broadcom CPO system and measured its reliability at nearly 5 times the lifespan of the old pluggable approach. So it's a real, credible alternative, not a toy.
So which camp wins? Full stack NVIDIA or open Broadcom?
And that is the beautiful question. Because for the lesson of today, it almost doesn't matter. Look at this. Here are the two camps, totally different architectures, fighting it out. But when you read both of their CPO designs carefully, they both depend on the exact same scarce ingredient underneath. A special kind of laser chip, made from a material called indium phosphide, NP for short.
Wait, so both rivals, no matter how different their systems are, need the same laser?
The same laser. The light has to come from somewhere, and these tiny NP laser chips are the somewhere. So whoever wins the architecture war up top, NVIDIA, Broadcom, or some mix, the companies that make the lasers get paid either way. In our world, we call that a realization-agnostic supplier. It doesn't care which version of the future comes true because it sells the one thing every version needs. That's the bottleneck. That's the whole hook of this episode.
So if the laser is the bottleneck, I want to see where it sits. Walk me up the chain.
Let's build it left to right. It starts with an MP wafer, the raw material. From that wafer, you make the laser chip itself. The laser feeds into a photonic integrated circuit, which steers and shapes the light. That goes into an optical engine, which gets packaged into a transceiver module, which finally plugs into the switch. 6 stages, raw material to finished network.
And CPO changes where the money lands in that chain?
That's the key insight. As co-packaged optics pulls the engine inside the switch, the old finished module, the pluggable thing on the front panel, starts to commoditize. It becomes less special. Meanwhile, the value migrates upstream toward the hard part. The lasers, the photonic chips, the advanced packaging. The bottleneck isn't the finished module anymore. It's the laser at the head of the river. So now the obvious question is, okay, who actually makes these things?
Right. And I'm guessing this is where it gets interesting, because they're not all the same.
This is the real payoff of the episode. There are 4 companies people lumped together as the AI optics names. And on the surface, they all look similar. But underneath, there are 4 completely different businesses, different quality, different power, different risk. Learning to tell them apart is genuinely the most useful thing you can take from today. Let's meet them. Just the facts on each. First, Coherent, ticker COHR. Think of them as the giant that owns the whole river. They start at the raw NP wafer and go all the way to finished modules and CPO engines, lasers, photonic chips, transceivers, the lot. They built one of the world's first high-volume 6-inch NP platforms, which is the gating resource for the fastest optics. Their data center segment is over 70% of revenue. Gross margins run around 38%, and they're solidly profitable, a business doing several billion in revenue a year.
So the pitch is breadth. They touch every stage, so they're hard to go around.
That's the moat. When you own the materials and the lasers and the packaging, you're very hard to design out because you're feeding both camps at once. Second, Lumentum, ticker LITE. If Coherent owns the whole river, Lumentum is laser-focused on the single most valuable bend in it, the laser chip itself. They actually wound down their old consumer business, the 3D sensing stuff in phones, so now they're almost entirely a cloud and networking pure play. And here's the number that tells the story. A recent quarter up, about 90% year over year, a record operating margin north of 30%, and, this is the tell, a supply-demand imbalance they describe as over 30%.
Meaning demand for their lasers is more than 30% above what the whole industry can supply.
Which is the textbook definition of pricing power. When everybody needs your part and nobody can make enough, you set the price. That's the purest expression of the bottleneck we've been talking about. The catch, and we'll be honest about it, is that the market knows this. So the stock trades at a very rich multiple, around 146 times earnings. A lot of good news is already in the price. That's just a fact to hold alongside the strength, not a prediction.
Is there an outside signal that the laser really is the choke point, not just our theory?
There's a great one, and it's hard to top. On a single day in early 2026, NVIDIA, the company that arguably understands this supply chain better than anyone alive, made a roughly $2 billion equity investment into Coherent and a roughly $2 billion investment into Lumentum. Same day. Both laser names.
So the biggest customer in the world quietly put its own money into both of the laser makers.
When the player with the most information and the most to lose decides to own a piece of its own suppliers, that's about as loud a signal as you get about where the scarce, must-have ingredient lies. They're effectively pointing at the choke point with $2 billion in each hand.
Okay, Company 3.
Fabrinet, ticker FN. And this one's a fascinating contrast because it's a great business that is not a bottleneck. Fabrinet is the world's largest independent contract manufacturer for optics. They build the modules for everyone. And here's the clever part. Because Fabrinet sells nothing under its own brand, fierce competitors all trust it with their secret manufacturing recipes. Nobody worries Fabrinet will steal their design because Fabrinet doesn't have designs. That neutrality is a real moat.
But you said not a bottleneck. Why not?
Because of the margins. Fabrinet's gross margin is only around 12%. They're essentially charging an assembly fee on top of parts they pass straight through. That's a wonderful, efficient business. But a 12% fee is not pricing power. And on top of that, one customer is nearly 28% of their revenue, so there's real concentration. So it's a high-quality volume play. You ride the growth of optics generally, but it's a shovel, not the gold. And the fourth, to round out the picture honestly, Applied Optoelectronics, ticker AAOI. It's the small, scrappy one. It actually does have real in-house laser technology and an early co-packaged optics program, which is genuinely interesting. But the financials demand caution. It's currently losing money. Gross margins are around 29%, well below the laser leaders, and the customer concentration is, frankly, extreme. Its top 10 customers are about 98% of revenue, with a single one near 40%.
So it's the speculative end of the spectrum. Real technology, but a much shakier business underneath.
Exactly. We mention it because it's part of the map and it has genuine tech, but it's the high-risk, high-volatility corner, not the steady choke point. Same AI optics label, completely different animal. Which brings us to the single most useful lesson of the whole episode. Put all four side by side, and one thing jumps out. The headline is identical. AI optics riding the boom. But the quality couldn't be more different. A 12% margin contract manufacturer, a 40% margin laser maker with pricing power, and an unprofitable company with one customer making half its sales. Those are not the same investment idea, even though they share a news category.
So the trick is to ignore the label and look at the margin and the concentration.
That's the whole skill in one sentence. Margins tell you who has pricing power, who's a real bottleneck, versus who's just correlated with a hot theme. A fat, durable gross margin usually means they can't make enough of me. A thin one usually means I'm a fee. When two companies are in the same headline but one earns 40 cents on the dollar and the other earns 12, those are different kinds of business. And that difference is invisible if you only read the headline.
So, is the takeaway just, the laser makers are great? The end? That feels too clean.
It is too clean, and we owe you the other side. Two honest cautions. 1. A wonderful business is not the same as a wonderful stock at any price. The best of these names trade at rich multiples in a very crowded, over-owned trade, which means even if the laser thesis is exactly right, the stocks can still fall hard when the crowd rotates out. The bottleneck being real doesn't make the share price safe.
And 2?
2. This is a cyclical industry that has booms and busts, and a lot of optimism about the next few years is already priced in. The way you actually find out who's right isn't the day-to-day tape. It's the earnings reports over the next couple of years, as the 2027 and 2028 capacity actually arrives. So the honest posture is curiosity and patience, not certainty. We're mapping the terrain, not calling the race. So if you keep one idea from today, make it this. In the AI light wars, the durable bottleneck isn't the switch, and it isn't even which architecture wins. It's the laser at the head of the stream, the one ingredient every version of the future needs.
And the way to tell the real bottlenecks from the lookalikes is to follow the value up the stack and read the margins. Same headline, 4 different businesses. Pricing power is the tell.
This was education and entertainment only, a tour of how the industry works, never advice, and never a position anyone holds. Optics is a cyclical, fast-moving business, and everything we said could look different a year from now. But the way of thinking, find the choke point, follow the value, respect the margin, that part lasts. Thanks for spending part of your day getting curious with us.
Follow the light, find the laser. We'll see you on the next one. That's a wrap for today. Thanks for thinking it through with us. We're just testing our theses out loud, one day at a time.
Catch you on the next one. Stay curious and tell us where we're wrong.